Namaste, everyone. I'm Mercedes, a holistic coach and founder of brightstarwoman.com, and I am thrilled to be here today on the Namasted Spiritual Warriors Summit to share a little bit about the practices that have changed my life and my clients' lives the most. And by that I mean meditation and energy work as healing practices. So I've prepared a little introduction for you, as well as a challenge and 2 exclusive offers for summit participants. So stick around until the end to find out what that's all about. All right. So specifically today, I'd like to discuss how meditation and energy work have supported my own healing on many occasions and continue to do so even today. And I'd like to tackle why these practices are important for healing and why we would want to practice them whether it be in times of crises or when life is good, right? Why would we practice meditation when everything is good and great? So let's jump right in. The very concept of healing and the concept of wellness are both holistic in nature because we are complex beings with complex health systems that connect the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So what we do physically impacts our thinking, our moods, and our overall state of being. And what we think, we influence our bodies and our moods, and our spiritual practices, in essence, trickle down and impact those more tangible levels like the physical and the mental, and even the emotional. Right? So I believe that the different levels of our being and of our wellness are akin to a garden, right? So it takes a little bit of science, a little bit of craft, a lot of commitment, and a little bit of intuition for that magic place to blossom, like our unique inner garden. So you might be wondering why healing matters and why we want to have these practices. And so, you might be one of these people who has a very easy time breezing through most areas of your life, but there might be one area that's particularly challenging, or you're generally happy-go-lucky and, anything that comes your way, you take it in strides, and that's great. But most of us tend to get knocked off kilter when things happen from the outside. So the human experience itself is really about experiencing the full range of emotions and experiences in our physical beings, as well as our mental and emotional dimensions, right? So we may at some point experience wounds. Well, in fact, we do. They're to varying degrees. We may experience pain, injury, illness, accidents, trauma, loss, grief, and challenges. And any one of those things touch us at some point in our lives. So we need tools and practices to help us overcome these, lest they become a hindrance to our unique inner gardens blossoming and helping our bodies just return to that state of homeostasis, that natural state of healing and wellness. The beauty and the opportunity to be imperfectly beautiful humans with growth opportunity are really in the healing and the transformation that happen through and as a consequence of these rather more challenging experiences. So who we are as we unfold and unbecome through our lives is the great gift that's waiting to be unwrapped. All right. Meditation and energy healing practices in general, and energy healing may include the very popular discipline of Reiki, but also it could be rituals like ceremonies from all kinds of indigenous cultures, or even shamanic practices or traditional healers. These practices, from meditation to energy work, are conduits and vehicles for our soul's blossoming into our true and fullest potential. The perception in our modern society is that meditation has been recognized as an effective stress buster and stress management tool. But largely, it's still not recognized in our main culture as very much else. Those in the know also are aware of the physical and mental health benefits, but it's much broader and much deeper than that. So on the mental health side, yes, it is a stress buster and a stress management tool, but it's also a tool of self-awareness that helps develop intuition. It helps us create healthier boundaries, which then leads to healthier relationships, and that reaches our emotional health as well. It helps us develop a practice of gratitude, again, reaches our emotional health as well, and an overall sense of purpose and a lifestyle of happiness and contentment. On the physical health side, it's been demonstrated that meditation on a regular basis, even as few as a few minutes a day, helps to lower blood pressure. It helps create a healthy heart rate. It produces a better sleep over time. So more restful and longer sleep, undisturbed. It helps create an improved digestion. It helps improve digestion, reestablish hormone balance, and ultimately it helps us maintain healthy weight, healthy body weight. And then of course there's the emotional health component, where the practice of meditation helps us know ourselves better because we practice being the observer of our physical state, of our energy, of our mood, of our thoughts, and therefore we develop greater awareness. Greater self-awareness also leads to greater self-respect, and this leads to greater self-expression and opportunities for creative outlet, and ultimately this leads us to more satisfying relationships, right? So when we are in harmony within ourselves, I prefer to use the word harmony to balance, because balance is this ideal that we like to strive for, but balance is not a sustainable state ever. It's always something we strive for. Whereas harmony recognizes that we may be out of balance in certain areas of our lives for certain periods and certain phases, but overall we still feel well within ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And we recognize with perspective that we may be in different cycles of our life, and therefore if we are out of balance for love or for family or for a passion project, we understand that this is a temporary state and we still feel well within. So personally, meditation and related energy work or energy healing practices have supported me through a number of things. The list is not limited to, but includes burnout and adrenal fatigue, hypothyroidism, anxiety, chronic depression, miscarriage and grief that comes with this type of loss, apparent infertility, gestational diabetes when I was expecting my son, and birth trauma and surgery. So that seems like a really long list for a fairly young person, right? But that's because I stopped and I actually looked at my experiences as true and valid, as part of the human experience. So we all have different journeys, but this is part of my journey as a wounded healer. I've experienced a range of things where I've had the opportunity to put my teachings and what I've learned in yoga, in meditation, in EFT, and several other disciplines, Reiki included. I've got to put those teachings in practice for myself and to see how it worked, what were the effects on me personally, and how that rippled through my life, right? So you might still be wondering how these practices, such as regular meditation, which is a very broad term, so many types of meditations exist, and energy healing practices in general, how they can support healing and why we choose to adopt any or several of these practices when we are in crises, and perhaps even less when things are going well, like when life is good. So I'd like to specify that to answer this question, healing requires a few things. So aside from the allopathic medical science related to the physical healing of a disease or illness, there's an underlying factor to healing that requires the patient, client, whatever you want to call it, participation in their own healing. And this is something that's thoroughly understood in Indigenous cultures. So essentially, as I understand it, healing requires a few things of the participant. It requires a conscious choice and a wellness-focused mindset. You have to want to heal, and you have to think in terms of how can I facilitate my healing, my wellness in general, if you are already if you have overcome a condition, an injury, and so on and so forth. Because we want to think in a proactive way. We want to continue to foster this wellness once we are healed, right? Healing is a process. So healing also requires awareness. It requires awareness of self, but also of the factors that may have caused the condition or the state that is unhealthy or uncomfortable for the participant, client, or subject. And ultimately, healing requires vulnerability and asking for support. So how do meditation and energy work support these requirements for healing? Because essentially that's the question, right? How are we facilitating healing through meditation and energy work? Well, in times of crises, a regular meditation practice, and we'll talk about specific styles of meditation and energy work later on. A regular meditation practice will support these healing requirements because meditation provides a direct line to awareness. As we mentioned, healing requires awareness of self and of the conditions that caused the unhealthy state or condition to begin with. So meditation encourages us to act as the observer of our minds, of our states, our emotional states, and of our physical states. Because they are not who we are, they are parts of our physical expression. And meditation and energy work are self-care practices that foster the wellness mindset required to want to heal and to continue to foster that state of holistic wellness once the healing is achieved or completed. As I mentioned, healing is a process, right? So we will revisit healing over time, especially if we're talking about something that has several layers, right? Like if we're talking to somebody who's healing a trauma, it's very different from healing a pain from a physical injury. Or maybe it isn't, all depends. So these practices, meditation and energy work, give us perspective, the perspective we need to understand and solve our situations, even if it is simply a step at a time. You know, as we are going through these practices, we don't always get all of the picture at once. We get these little aha moments and these little nuggets. And that isn't to say that we're healing without help. I think the smartest thing to do is to ask for help. As I mentioned, a requirement of healing is being vulnerable and asking for support when you need it. But you also need to have these tools and these mechanisms in place to facilitate your own journey to wellness. So understanding the causes and the circumstances of your unhealthy state or situation or condition is really key to changing things in your life afterwards in order to continue to foster that state of wellness. All right. And so when life is good, why would you practice meditation and energy healing or energy work? Well, there are self-care practices, as I mentioned, and self-care is a cornerstone to holistic wellness and happiness. It becomes sort of an insurance policy to your wellness because things happen, right? We have a little accident, we have, we get run down, we get sick, things happen. So when we have healthy practices in place, it makes it that much easier to recover and ask for the help we need, and eventually move on to the next beautiful experience, and hopefully the lesson from the unhealthy state that we were meant to learn and integrate. The other reason why we would want to rely on meditation and energy work as healing practices when things are good is that meditation helps us thrive as our best self. A regular practice especially will help us fulfill each area of our being to varying degrees. And when there is no obstacle in our life, like an unhealthy state or an external circumstance or factor, we can thrive more easily, right? In nature, something that has no obstacles will probably blossom a whole lot faster than something that is trying to grow in the shade or in the mud. But those challenges provide valuable experience for the next time there's another challenge, which I mentioned is the nature of human experience. But when there is a challenge, because we have these reliable practices, we are better prepared to overcome them, right? So you might be wondering how I would know anything about how this might work and how I possibly could have used these practices to heal or to support rather my healing, because I didn't always do things alone, right? Usually we are complex systems physically, and we are complex beings energetically, right? We have these 4 different energy bodies, the body, the emotional body, the mental body, and the spiritual. And these have to be in harmony in order to be well and thrive. Okay, so here's a little bit more about my healing story, and I'll give you concrete examples of what I've overcome and how, and we'll go from there. So a few years back, I was diagnosed with burnout and adrenal fatigue. I had been working too many hours in a job where I did not feel appreciated. I was not properly compensated for the work that I did. And through a combination of that situation and some personal circumstances in my family at the time, I was very much at the end of my rope. And one day I walked out of the office and I collapsed on the sidewalk on a street in Ottawa. And I cried. I had no idea where I was. I called my mother first, and then I called the doctor, and I was off work for a few months. I didn't know it. I didn't know that I could have a burnout at age 26. I didn't know that I could have a burnout from overworking, and yet these things all happened. And that's when I decided to consult a naturopath to help me on the nutrition side and to see which hormones were at play here. And that's when I found my yoga and meditation practice. So for me, it started with a regular asana and breath awareness practice. But moving my body mindfully with conscious breath was really important in my journey to self-empowerment, to feeling like I had some sense of agency over my life, even though I was suddenly sick and it took me by surprise. So that was like my first introduction. But through this regular practice, I was able to eventually return to work in another job. But that was kind of where my spiritual journey truly began, because I thought, I can't be in this situation again. And perhaps the circumstance of an office 9 to 5 is a bit too limiting to what I want to accomplish in my life. So it's kind of a little peek into my future. It helped me develop self-awareness and know my limits as much as my freedom. Then following the burnout, I received a diagnosis of hypothyroidism. So my thyroid gland, which is in your throat, funnily enough, it's associated with the throat chakra, which is to do with self-expression, was underactive. And so I essentially energetically had been repressing my own needs and my own expression. And I believe that is what led me to develop hypothyroidism. That and the trigger being the burnout. And through the burnout and the hypothyroidism, I suffered from chronic depression. I was depressed because I couldn't recognize who I was anymore. I couldn't recognize my life, the work I had chosen to earn a living. I had put on 60 pounds following the hypothyroid diagnosis and the adrenal fatigue, and this was despite having a fairly healthy diet and regular exercise, like 6 days a week exercise. So in the space of a year, I had put on that much weight, and I felt lost. And so that's when I started practicing guided meditation. I had no idea where to start. I knew I had a yoga practice. I knew about breath awareness, which helped me feel calm and centered, but I couldn't bring myself to bring this feeling in my day-to-day life. So that's when I started practicing mindfulness, bringing myself back into the present moment and observing my reactions to things happening outside of me as clues to what's happening inside of me. Through mindfulness, visualization, guided meditation, yin yoga, which is very gentle, and organ-friendly exercise, that's low cortisol producing, I then began changing my career path with lots of trial and error and some lifestyle choices, including diet and choosing the types of activities that I allowed in my life in order to reduce stressors. And in the span of 4 years, I was back to normal. I had been given this diagnosis with this express explanation that my hypothyroid condition would be a life sentence and that I would be on medication for the rest of my life. So I thought, well, if I'm on medication for the rest of my life, I might as well do things to help myself. There's no such thing as giving up in my mind. We let go of the things that no longer serve us, but we don't give up on ourselves, right? So we have little moments where we feel lost, but I thought, I need to do something to help myself. I got here through choices that I made, unconscious or conscious. So if I make a conscious choice to be well, and I put those practices in place, including the mindfulness, the visualization, and so on, then I will feel better. And sure enough, I did. And the doctors were surprised that my tests came back with such normal results. So it took 4 years for me to overcome hypothyroidism. 4 years is a long time for some people, but it's also short in the context of a lifetime, especially when you're told that you'll be on medication forever. So I thought those were well invested years of self-discovery and of intentional choices, which is a part of mindfulness. Then, of course, a few years after returning to working in an office environment, I was commuting and I was taking a bus, which leaves very little control in traffic, obviously. So one of these mornings, my bus was running very, very late. We were in gridlock, and I started having a panic attack on the bus. And I'd had panic attacks before, and I've had them since, although much less frequently now. And in this instance, my heart was beating so fast out of my chest, the thought crossed my mind, are you going to die on this bus? Panic attacks have a way of making you feel like you're going to die, even if you're not. But your mind is very powerful. And so I thought, I can't feel this way indefinitely. This is going to kill me. I need to do something. I can't get off this bus right now. I'm on a bridge. There's nowhere to let me off. And this won't change anything about my condition at work or my arrival and all that. So that's when I decided to sit back in my seat and just focus on the meditation, the Reiki meditation visualization that I had practiced before, which is a Reiki visualization of the white light energy flowing through my physical body in a figure eight motion, stemming from infinity into infinity and back through my body. Essentially, it's a meditation that infuses your body with life force energy. So I practice this in order to ground myself first and foremost, but also to reconnect with the light that I was. And sure enough, after a few minutes of this visualization, we got off the bridge and I got off at the first stop I could, and I was breathing lightly, I was walking lightly, and I got to work when I got to work, and I wasn't fired. So it helped me realize that when things are completely out of our control, we need to remember who we are and that we are light beings, and that this grounding practice is essential in being present in the moment and understanding that, yes, there are external factors that we can't control. So, Reiki as an energy healing practice specifically also helped me cope with my mother's cancer diagnosis a few years back. Spoiler alert, she's great now. She's cancer-free, in remission. But it also helped me hold space for her in the hospital when she was suffering and not getting the attention that she needed from the medical teams when, they were trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And the Canadian healthcare system has its own challenges. So it allowed me to provide a different type of support to my mother. I was lucky enough to see her actually feel some pain relief as I was practicing Reiki on her in her hospital bed just a few days before they discovered that she eventually had gastroenteritis, which led to intestinal rupture, which led to surgery. But essentially, Reiki helped manage her pain. It didn't heal her, but it did manage her pain, which is a part of the process. So, another challenge I had with my health, which may speak to a lot of women or a lot of couples out there, was when we were trying to conceive and experienced challenges conceiving, but also experienced 2 consecutive miscarriages. This was particularly difficult for us because we wanted to have many children and we wanted to start early. And when miscarriages are a difficult experience to live through at any stage. So don't let anyone ever tell you that, oh, it's easy because it's at 6 weeks, or, oh, this is far worse, it happened at 21 weeks, that type of thing. It's all valid, okay? And everyone has their own way of experiencing these types of grief and loss. So in our case, it was a huge shock both times, and it was very difficult to, it was a tough pill to swallow. And I developed so much anger and resentment and feeling like my body was betraying me, and that I felt like I was grieving a possible life as a mother, you know. So at the time that I was going through these miscarriages, I was working full-time as a yoga teacher. And even though I was not teaching prenatal yoga, I would find, as the universe would have it, my triggers in the very front row. I would have 7-month pregnant women sitting in the front row and looking to me for advice on how to practice yoga safely during pregnancy. So in the moment, I remained professional and I provided them with support, but then I would come home and I would cry and be devastated because I would feel like the universe was taunting me. And in actuality, it was an opportunity for me to observe, recognize, and accept the wound and heal it. And I knew in a brief moment of clarity that if I were never to be a mother, I could not live the rest of my life feeling angry and sorry for myself because it would destroy me. It would destroy me, it would destroy my relationship. And that's when I decided to commit to Kundalini meditation called the Kirtan Kriya, which is an 11-minute or 31-minute meditation that involves visualization and mantra and mudra. Mudras are hand gestures, and mantra is a seed sound or a sound that has a certain vibration that you would repeat during your meditation. So I committed to doing 30 days of the Kirtan Kriya, and I ended up doing 90 because when I reached 40, a friend of mine who practiced Kundalini said, "You're just warmed up for 90-day meditation." And so I did. And at the end of that meditation, I felt at peace. The Kirtan Kriya is meant to balance all levels of consciousness: the subconscious, the conscious or ego mind, and the divine consciousness or higher selves. So it helps us overcome negative thinking patterns and debilitating mindsets. But it also heals women specifically in their womb system. It helps regulate the menstrual cycle and heal us from trauma. And it doesn't exclusively have to be sexual trauma. It can be trauma of any kind. And this is a belief held in indigenous cultures as well, that women hold their trauma in their womb space, which is, you could have, let's say, a car accident and have PTSD from that, and it may live in your womb space, and that's when you develop, let's say, PCOS or endometriosis or a cervical cancer scare. I also had a cervical cancer scare, which thankfully ended up not being cancer. So these types of meditation, the Kundalini meditations, were very structured, and they gave me the kind of the direction I needed in order to commit to a daily practice. I thought, it's only 11 minutes a day. I can find 11 minutes in my day to practice. I had practiced meditation on and off over the years, but I needed to have a daily practice. And that's what I decided to do. I thought, I need to do this for myself because I need to heal my mind, my heart, and my body. And at the end of those 90 days, I could see with my mind's eye this beautiful white fireworks just over my womb system. And I thought, what's that? And sure enough, a week after I finished the 90-day meditation challenge, I took a pregnancy test and I was expecting. And that was the pregnancy that led to my son being born. So whether or not the meditation is what healed me is inconsequential. What matters is that I was able to bring myself from feeling desperate and angry and resentful to feeling empowered and peaceful and forgiving, and clearing the trauma that clearly I was holding in my womb space from those miscarriages, and allowing space for a child to come into the world. So that was probably the moment or the experience that really highlighted how powerful meditation can be, even on a physical level. I went from having issues conceiving to having a healthy child. So I can't say that the meditation did it, but it supported me through it. And of course, through the rite of the womb, the Kirtan Kriya practice, I also practiced the indigenous rite of the womb, which was channeled by Marcela Lobos. It is a rite, R-I-T-E, a ceremony, if you will, that helps women clear the trauma from the wombs and welcome creativity and fertility back in their womb system. So I use a combination of that meditation and this ritual to help me heal my wounded feminine in my body, in my heart, in my mind. If I thought the challenges were over after conceiving my son, I had no idea what was coming. One of the latest and last challenges so far in my health journey was having a challenging first. The pregnancy for my son was very challenging. I had a gestational diabetes diagnosis, and that required me to control my glycemia with diet and exercise, as well as face my fear of blood and needles. It's not really a fear. I suffer from what's called vasovagal syncope. It's a real thing. For all my life, I thought I just had a fear, but it's an actual condition of the nervous system. It's kind of like the possum syndrome, where as soon as a needle contacts me, my nervous system shifts to parasympathetic overdrive, and my blood pressure drops almost to the point of fainting. So maybe some of you will relate to this. Whenever you get a vaccine or blood drawn, you feel very faint. It happens to a lot more people than they'd like to admit, and that's called vasovagal syncope. So I had to basically prick myself every day, 4 times a day, to monitor my blood. I had to face a very real discomfort with the hospital setting, and I was presented with lots of worst case scenarios and fear-based thinking, and oftentimes I felt bullied by not my immediate medical team. I had a midwife the first time around, but lots of consultations external to my immediate midwife team. And so I had to get really rigorous with my food diet, obviously, to control the glycemia, and adopt. In my case, I chose a yoga asana practice for maternity to help on the physical side of the healing or of the management of the symptoms of gestational diabetes. And I used mindfulness and visualization to help me cope through all the emotions I was feeling through this pregnancy. And I used EFT tapping, the tapping of the meridian points, to help me through crises and really strong emotions, like when I felt scared or bullied or pressured, all those things around my condition, and I felt like I had no agency. I would use my tapping to help me regain that sense of presence and that sense of peace, from being grounded, understanding the emotions I was feeling, and then accepting them and letting them go. So my dream of having an at-home water birth was completely crushed at week 38 when I was informed for the very first time that with a gestational diabetes diagnosis, there was a risk of an induction and potentially even a C-section. So I reluctantly checked myself into the hospital at 40 weeks and received an induction, which ultimately failed due to my labor progress stopped. And without going into details of my own specific experience, essentially it resulted in me feeling trauma from my birth experience and having to recover from a major surgery. We tend to think that C-sections are routine, and they may be routine for medical staff, but they're not routine for women. And there's still major surgery with their associated risks. Medicine has come a long way, but let's not minimize the fact that a C-section is actually a major surgery. So for me, I had to manage and continue to manage this experience through another meditation that would help me overcome these feelings of anger and resentment for how things unfolded for me. And I thought, last time I felt this angry, I went to the Kirtan Kriya, but I did it for 90 days. What if I did it for a full year? What would happen? So I decided that I asked for help and for support to help me heal from various professionals, but I also decided to help myself by adopting a full year's practice of the Kirtan Kriya, 365 days. Every day, 11 minutes of practice. And I also practiced EFT in times of crisis when I felt really angry or really sad or really guilty for how things unfolded for me. And I practiced my rite of the womb, which I resumed after the birth of my son, to help me heal from the surgery. And that's when I saw the most transformation. At the end of my year, I had learned so much about myself, but I also changed my life conditions. So I managed to not only recover from the pre-diabetic state that I was left in after the birth of my son, and my medical team basically asked me, what did you do? Usually women remain diabetic or at least pre-diabetic. And here you are a year, not even a year and a bit later, and you're back to normal. In fact, you're on the low side of normal. So my meditation supported my wellness practices. It helped me stay committed to a much healthier whole food diet for myself. It helped me stay committed to low cortisol producing but regular physical exercise that I enjoy doing, which all in all helped me manage my glycemia. Meditation helped me value myself enough to want to heal and to stick to it. So another surprising fact, just a little anecdote like this, I also managed to almost triple my income from prior to my maternity leave to when I went back to work. Because one of the benefits of the Kirtan Kriya is to rewire our thinking patterns and balance our levels of awareness. So I was able to free myself from this lack mentality. To a certain degree. It's still a work in progress, but I managed to start that healing process with abundance and prosperity. So enough about me. Here's the truth about meditation and energy healing in general. Meditation, meditative practices, and energy healing practices aren't cure-alls, but they are powerful. They're powerful aids in the healing journey and in the maintenance of a wellness lifestyle. Meditation helps. It helps us tend to our unique inner landscape and fosters the optimal conditions for our magical space to blossom in full color and magnificence. As there are various fields of allopathic and alternative medicines, there are also various styles of meditation and yoga. We have mindfulness, which in yoga is called vipassana. We have guided meditations, we have shamanic journeys, rites and ceremonies, EFT tapping, which comes from emotional freedom technique, EFT tapping, comes from the world of psychology, but it's actually a form of a meditation. All of these, including traditional hatha yoga practices like hatha yoga meditations with mantra and mudra, or even breath work, the pranayams, so breath exercises, or even the kundalini meditations, the kriyas, who are a bit more structured and supported by millennia of evidence, but also by a work written by Dharma Singh Khalsa, MD, called Meditation as Medicine. He actually demonstrated the physical, emotional, and mental benefits of meditation. And the meditations found in his book are actually a collection of meditations he's tested over the years. So the key to meditation success, to establishing a regular meditation practice and to reaping the benefits of meditation, is to find the right style for us. Not every sport will appeal to us, not every style of yoga will appeal to us, and not every style of meditation. It just makes sense. So meditation of many styles helped transform my life personally, but also helped many of my clients and students. And I wanted to share with you today, for sticking around, a 7-day meditation challenge that is free to participate. And you can get it by signing up on my website, or if you're part of the summit, the All Namasted Spiritual Warriors Summit, you'll get it through this presentation. And if you are viewing this after the summit or through YouTube, you can sign up for my free 7-day meditation challenge, Meditate with Mercedes, for free at brightstarwoman.com/meditate-with-Mercedes. And that's brightstarwoman.com/meditate-with-Mercedes. Meditate with Mercedes. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sitting through this story that I hope inspired you on your spiritual journey and helped you establish spiritual practice, meditation practice of your own. If you are part of the All Namasted Spiritual Warriors Summit, here's the exclusive offer I have for you today. So not only are you taking part in the 7-day meditation challenge to give you a taste of the types of meditation that exist out there, to find which one's the right fit for you or send you in a direction to explore further, I have a special offer for participants only. I'm offering for a limited time a 22% discount on my holistic coaching rate for 5 sessions. So if you purchase 5 sessions, you get 22% off. And I'm also throwing in, because I'm launching something special in October, I'm throwing in the first month free to my She-Wolf Sisterhood online women's circle. And you should be able to go through my website and sign up for that. A link will be included in this presentation as well, with the discount applied. Again, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this helped you, and good luck with the 7-day meditation challenge.